My brother claimed he was changed. On Super Bowl Sunday, he slammed my son into a table, sent him to the ER, and ended up in prison after I took revenge. I am a forensic accountant. I mention my job because it says a lot about how I operate. I look for inconsistencies, I track patterns, and I deal in cold, hard facts. I don't like variables I can't control. For the last 20 years, the most volatile, uncontrollable variable in my life has been my older brother, Kyle, 38 male. If I'm the person who reads the fine print, Kyle is the guy who shreds the document, lights it on fire, and then demands you thank him for the heat. Kyle has always been the golden boy with a rusted soul. In high school, he was the star quarterback, the guy who could charm a teacher into changing a grade, while I was the nerd in the back of the class actually doing the work. Over the years, a toxic dynamic cemented itself in our family. Kyle would screw up. DUIs, gambling debts, petty theft, brawls, and our parents, specifically my mother, would swoop in with a dustpan to clean up his mess. They'd pay the bail, hush the neighbors, cover the debts, and then guilt-trip me into supporting family. I was always told to be the bigger person, to understand that Kyle was just going through a phase or finding himself. That phase has lasted 2 decades. About 6 months ago, Kyle resurfaced after a 2-year silence where none of us really knew where he was. When he came back, he looked different. He'd gained healthy weight, cut his hair, and claimed he was working a landscaping job in a neighboring state. He told us he was changed. He had found sobriety, found religion, found himself. Pick a cliché, he used it. My mother wept with joy, claiming her prayers were answered. My father, a man who would rather walk on glass than deal with emotional conflict, just nodded and wrote him a fat check for startup costs for a new apartment nearby. I was skeptical. In my line of work, you learn that people don't just change their entire personality overnight without a massive catalyst. I looked for patterns, and Kyle's pattern was always a flat line followed by a massive spike in chaos. But for the sake of my son, Leo, 6 male, and to keep the peace with my wife, Sarah, 32 female, I allowed limited contact. Leo didn't know his uncle well, and Kyle was charming when he wasn't desperate for cash. That brings us to Super Bowl Sunday. I hosted. I have a decent house in the suburbs, a large sectional, and a 75-inch TV. It was supposed to be a low-key event. Me, Sarah, Leo, my parents, Kyle, and a few of my colleagues from the firm. Kyle arrived an hour early. That was the first red flag. He was jittery, his eyes darting around my living room like he was appraising the furniture for an estate sale. He brought a 6-pack of non-alcoholic beer to make a show of his sobriety, placing it front and center on the kitchen island like a trophy. "Place looks great, little brother," he said, clapping me on the shoulder a little too hard. "Must be nice, sitting in the AC crunching numbers while I'm busting my back hauling mulch in the sun." "Hard work pays off," I said, keeping my tone neutral. I wasn't going to let him bait me. Yeah, he muttered, wandering toward the garage door. "Hey, I wanted to talk to you later about an investment opportunity. My boss is looking to expand his fleet, and I thought since you know money—" I cut him off immediately. "No, Kyle, we agreed. No money talk. You're here to watch the game and eat wings. That's it." His jaw tightened, a flash of the old Kyle, the one who punched holes in drywall when he lost a video game. But he masked it with a tight, fake smile. "Sure, just trying to help you out, man. Always so defensive." The game started, and the tension in the room became a physical weight. Kyle was loud. Not just enthusiastic fan loud, but aggressive. He was screaming at the refs, pounding the coffee table with his fist, and pacing the room. My colleagues were noticeably uncomfortable. My mother kept shooting me pleading looks, the universal code for "don't make a scene, he's trying so hard." By the third quarter, the vibe had shifted from awkward to hostile. My team was losing. Kyle, who had apparently bet money on the opposing team despite claiming he was clean from gambling, was gloating. "Take that!" he screamed, jumping up and knocking a bowl of chips onto the floor. "That's how you play. Pathetic!" Leo was sitting on the floor near the TV, building a Lego set. He's a quiet kid, sensitive to noise. He covered his ears and shrank back. "Uncle Kyle, you're being too loud," he said softly. Kyle looked down, his eyes glazed. It wasn't the look of a sober man. "It's a party, kid. Toughen up. Stop being such a baby." "Kyle, take it down a notch," Sarah said from the kitchen, her voice sharp. She had been watching him like a hawk all afternoon. "I'm fine, Sarah. God, you guys are stiff." Kyle reached for his non-alcoholic beer bottle, but I was watching him closely. He took a swig, and I smelled it from 5 feet away, the sharp, medicinal tang of cheap vodka. He had emptied the non-alcoholic brew in the bathroom and refilled it with a flask. He wasn't sober. He was hammered. I stood up, my patience snapping. "Kyle, I think you need to leave. I'll call you a ride." "I'm not going anywhere," he slurred, stepping into my personal space. "I'm watching the game. I got $2,000 riding on this." "You're drunk," I said, loud enough for the room to hear. "And you're betting. You're done. Get out of my house." My mother rushed over, wringing her hands. "OP, please don't embarrass him in front of your friends. He's just excited. Let him stay. He's doing so well." "He's drunk, Mom." I pointed at the bottle. "He's drinking vodka out of that bottle. He lied to you, again." Kyle's face twisted into a snarl. The mask of the changed man disintegrated completely. "You think you're better than me because you push numbers around? You're nothing without me. I protected you in school. I made you tough. I'm asking you to leave my house now." The play on the screen shifted abruptly. Interception. Kyle's team just lost the ball, and based on the clock, they likely lost the game, and his bet. Kyle roared. It was an animalistic sound of pure rage. He kicked the coffee table, sending it skidding across the rug. Then he looked at Leo. Leo, scared by the sudden violence, had stood up to run to Sarah. He passed in front of the TV for a split second. "Move, you little brat!" Kyle screamed. It happened in slow motion. I was 3 steps away, but I couldn't close the gap fast enough. Kyle didn't just shove him. He grabbed Leo by the upper arm and the back of his shirt, lifted my 6-year-old son off the ground, and slammed him into the solid oak edge of the dining table that sat behind the sofa. The sound was sickening, a wet thud, followed by the crack of wood or bone. Leo hit the floor and didn't move. Silence. Absolute terrified silence for 1 second. Then Sarah screamed. It was a sound I never want to hear again. I didn't think. I didn't calculate. I tackled Kyle. We crashed into the wall, knocking pictures down. I put my forearm against his throat, pinning him. He was laughing. He was actually laughing, a breathless, wheezing chuckle. "That'll teach him respect," he spat. My colleagues pulled me off him before I could do something that would send me to prison. Sarah was on the floor with Leo, who was now wailing, a high, thin sound of pure agony. There was blood, a lot of it, a gash on his forehead, and his arm was bent at a wrong angle.
911, I roared at my friend Dave. "No police," my father shouted, panic in his eyes, stepping between Dave and the door. "We can handle this. Kyle, get in the car. OP will take Leo to the hospital. Just don't call the cops. Think about his future." I looked at my father, a man I had respected for 3 decades, and felt that respect evaporate instantly. My son was bleeding on the floor, and his first instinct was to protect the aggressor. "If you try to move him, I will drop you too, Dad. Dave, call the police, now." Kyle was struggling against Dave and another friend, shouting about his bet, about how Leo ruined his parlay. He wasn't even looking at the child he had just assaulted. He was worried about his money. The police arrived within 10 minutes. I gave a statement while Sarah rode in the ambulance with Leo. I told the officers everything. The hidden alcohol, the gambling, the physical act of lifting and throwing a child. "He's my brother," I told the officer, "and I want to press charges. Aggravated assault, child endangerment, everything." "He's family," my mother sobbed from the porch. "He didn't mean it. He slipped." "I saw him throw the boy," Dave interrupted, stepping up. "It wasn't a slip, it was a throw." Kyle was arrested. He was screaming threats as they shoved him into the cruiser. "I'll sue you. This is my house. You owe me." At the ER, the diagnosis came in. A severe concussion, a fractured radius in his arm, and 14 stitches on his forehead. Leo was sedated and stable, but the doctor said if he had hit the temple an inch to the left, we'd be planning a funeral. I stayed by Leo's bedside all night. Sarah held his uninjured hand, weeping silently. I didn't cry. I was planning. I felt a cold, metallic anger settling in my chest. The next morning, the fix began. My parents called. They had bailed Kyle out. "He's at our house, OP. He's so sorry. He blacked out. He needs rehab, not prison. Please, drop the charges. If he has a felony, he can't work. You're ruining his life." "He threw my son into a table," I said, my voice devoid of emotion. "He is not coming near my family again." "We're cutting you out of the will if you pursue this," my father threatened. "Family protects family. You are betraying us." "Keep the money," I said. "You'll need it for his legal fees, and don't ever contact me again." I hung up and filed for an immediate temporary restraining order against Kyle for myself, Sarah, and Leo. I included my parents in the restricted contact list regarding Leo, citing their willingness to cover up child abuse. But here is where the story shifts. I went home to get clean clothes. The house was a crime scene of scattered snacks and spilled beer. I sat on the couch where Kyle had been sitting. I felt something hard between the cushions. It was a phone. Not his main phone. I knew that one. It had a cracked screen. This was a burner, a cheap prepaid flip phone. I powered it on. No passcode. I expected drug deals, maybe a bookie. What I found was infinitely worse and gave me the ammunition for the nuclear option. There were texts from a contact labeled landlord, but the texts weren't about rent. "Package lands Tuesday at the brother's place. You sure he's cool?" Kyle's reply, "He's a square. He won't check the garage. I got the code. Once it's there, I hand it off to you and my debt is wiped, right?" "Yeah, $50K wiped. Don't screw this up." He wasn't just visiting to reconnect. He wasn't just there to watch the game. He had targeted my house as a drop point for something illegal, likely drugs given the money involved, because he knew I was a square with a clean record and a quiet suburban home. He had planned to use my garage keypad code, which he must have memorized or stolen during a bathroom break, to store contraband. I didn't call the local cops immediately. I called a contact I knew through work, a federal agent who deals with organized crime financial trails. "I have a phone you need to see," I told him. This is where the entitlement of the villain met the cold, hard wall of the law. 2 days later, Tuesday, the package arrived. A delivery truck dropped a large crate marked lawn equipment in my driveway. I had already authorized the feds to be there. They intercepted it. Inside wasn't lawnmowers, it was compressed bricks of fentanyl and meth, enough to put someone away for life. They didn't arrest Kyle immediately. They waited. They wanted to see if he would show up to retrieve it. Since he was out on bail for the assault, thanks to our parents, Kyle was free to move. He texted me from a new number that afternoon. "Hey, I left a crate at your place. Ordered it for work before the accident. I need to pick it up. Don't be a jerk about it." The audacity. He hospitalizes my son, gets arrested, gets bailed out by our parents, and thinks he can just swing by to pick up his drug shipment? He assumed I wouldn't know what was in it. He assumed I was too weak or family-oriented to stop him. I replied, as instructed by the agents, "It's in the driveway. Come get it. I don't want your trash here." He arrived an hour later in my father's car. He looked smug. He probably thought he had won, that I was too scared to confront him. He pulled into the driveway, got out, and started loading the crate into the trunk. That's when the swarm happened. ATF and DEA agents, along with local PD, came out of my garage and the unmarked vans down the street. I watched from the window. The look on Kyle's face wasn't anger this time. It was pure, unadulterated terror. They slammed him onto the hood of my father's Buick. But I wasn't done. The criminal justice system takes time, and I wanted immediate destruction. I initiated a civil suit against Kyle for the medical bills, pain and suffering, and emotional distress. Since he had no money, I went after the assets he did have. It turned out, during his sober phase, our parents had put the title of their vacation cabin in his name to help him build credit and give him an asset to leverage for loans. I sued for that cabin. My parents were hysterical. They called me a traitor. They said I set him up. He didn't know what was in the box. He was used, my mother shrieked over voicemail. He knew, I said to myself. I have the texts. And the best part? My parents were being investigated as accessories because he used their car to transport a felony quantity of narcotics. They weren't arrested, but their assets were frozen during the investigation, and they were racking up massive legal bills trying to keep themselves out of jail. The assault case went to court first. Kyle's lawyer tried the changed man who slipped defense. He tried to argue that Leo ran into him, that it was an accident. I took the stand. I played the audio recording from my living room security camera, a simple Nest cam on the bookcase he hadn't noticed. The court heard the slur in his voice. They heard him scream, "Move, you little brat!" They heard the sickening crunch of my son hitting the table, and they heard him laugh. The jury was out for less than an hour. Guilty on aggravated assault on a minor and child endangerment. Then came the federal charges: conspiracy to distribute, trafficking. Because he had a prior record, and because the assault happened while he was committing the conspiracy to traffic drugs, the judge showed zero mercy. The sentencing was brutal. For the assault, 8 years state time. For the drugs, 15 years federal. The sentences are to run
consecutively, not concurrently. He won't be out until he's nearly 60. I won the civil suit. The judge awarded us the rights to the cabin. I didn't keep it. I sold it immediately and put every cent into a trust fund for Leo's college and therapy. My parents are broken. They spent their retirement savings on Kyle's defense, which failed miserably. They're currently facing financial ruin. They cut me out of their will, which is fine because there is nothing left to inherit anyway. They created a monster, fed it, and then tried to blame the village when it ate them. Leo is healing. The scar on his forehead is fading, but he still flinches at loud noises. We go to therapy weekly. He knows Uncle Kyle is in timeout for a very long time. Last week, I received a letter from prison. It was from Kyle. It wasn't an apology. It was a rant about how I tricked him, how I ruined his life over a stupid accident, and how he was entitled to a share of the cabin money. He wrote that I should have just let him take the crate and looked the other way because that's what brothers do. I didn't burn it. I scanned it, saved it to my hard drive, and forwarded a copy to the parole board with a note attached to his file. Inmate shows no remorse and continues to blame the victim. Zero rehabilitation observed. I'm an accountant. I balance the books. Kyle took something from my son that can never be fully replaced, his sense of safety. So I took Kyle's future. The ledger is finally balanced. If you enjoyed watching a changed man get changed into a federal inmate, hit that subscribe button. It's the only visitation right you'll get.